Can you state your name for us, please?
My full name is Hattie McIntosh.
Okay. Now, did you grow up here in Mount Pleasant Avenue?
No, I didn't. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I came to Philadelphia in 1961 to teach school. And I met my husband, and we were married in 1963. We lived in Philadelphia for a while, and then we moved to Gypsy Lane in Gulf Mills in 1974. And so my husband was a minister in addition to being a real estate broker and a developer. And he was affiliated with a church in Philadelphia, but when he passed, since First Baptist was so close to me, and since Reverend and Mrs. Miles were good friends, as a matter of fact, Mrs. Miles and I started teaching the same year at the same school. So I started visiting here, and then I finally joined in 1987. Okay.
So, where is your family originally from?
My family is originally, my parents were born in a little town called Beaver Dam, Virginia, that's near Richmond, Virginia. So my parents are originally from Virginia. They moved to Baltimore for employment,
Okay.
and I was born in Baltimore.
Okay. So how did you and your family end up in Pennsylvania?
I graduated from Morgan State University, but I finished in the middle, finished in February. I had taken the teacher's exam in Philadelphia the year before because I had an aunt here who was a teacher. So she said, well, I visited her. She said, well, you might as well take the teacher's exam. So I took the teacher's exam. When I finished in Baltimore, there were two systems. There were 2 semesters. Semester from September to January, and then a semester from February to June. Okay, and they were like A and B, so like 12A, 12B. So they didn't have any positions in Baltimore. You know, they weren't hiring English teachers. But I got a letter from the school district of Philadelphia saying that they had a job for me in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
So I said, well, I have a job. I discussed it with my parents. I said, Mom, what am I going to do? I said, I have a job, but I don't have any place to stay. She said, call your aunt. So I called my aunt, who was a teacher in Philadelphia, and asked her if I could come and stay with her. So she said, yeah, come on. So I packed my clothes in 2 days.
I know that's right.
And got up and came to Philadelphia. That's how I got to Philadelphia.
Okay.
And then I met my husband, and we were married in 1963.
Uh-huh.
Do you guys have any children?
I have 3 children. I have a daughter and 2 sons.
Okay. Were they raised around the Mount Pleasant area, or they were also members of the church?
My daughter was a member of the church. In fact, she was a trustee, but she wasn't raised here. After my husband died, I joined, and then she was a flight attendant. And she left flying because she wanted to be close to me, and we had a real estate business. So she left flying to come and stay with me and help with the business. And then since I was attending here, she started attending, but she's not familiar. However, my children went to Upper Marion. My sons went to Upper Marion High School. Okay.
So, what do you like about your church?
I love the fact that it's small, number one, and it's like family.
Okay. Good. So, being that it's in the Mount Pleasant area and you've attended this church for so long, what would you say the culture is that you've picked up about Mount Pleasant? What is the culture in Mount Pleasant like, based on the people that you interact with in church?
It's not big city, it's small town, where everybody knows everybody.
Right.
And I found the people here to be very, very friendly, but they're also inclusive, you know. They're friendly, but they're not, if you're not from the area, they're not going to let you in but so much.
Right,
yeah.
right.
I mean, they're friendly, but they're not going to divulge a whole lot about them personally.
Exactly.
Okay.
So do you have a close friend or family that live in Mount Pleasant which is why they let you in so quickly.
Well, like I said, it was Mrs. Miles. She and I were very close friends because we had started teaching together. So I was friendly with her, and then when I joined, she and I became friendly, and I became friendly with the Olivers. I became friendly with Joy and Peggy and John's wife. John Grant, yeah. I became friendly with those sisters. It's 4 of them, right?
Yeah.
And also Barbara Burke. So those are, because we sang, I joined the choir. I joined the gospel chorus. So they all sang on the gospel chorus. So, and I love singing on the gospel chorus.
Do you have any particular hobbies that you do?
I read a lot. I play pinochle. I belong to a number of pinochle clubs. I do crossword puzzles. That's about it.
Earlier you mentioned your daughter came to help you with the business. Is there a business that you guys run, or?
My son is running it now. It's a real estate business.
And where does this real estate business?
It used to be in the city. Now it's in Bluebell.
Okay.
Okay.
So where do you guys handle your real estate? Do you how do you operate real estate? Do you buy?
He
and
buys,
flip, or-
sells, rehabs,
Nice. Okay.
everything.
So how long have you been out of the business? When did you pass the business?
I
on to
passed the
your son?
business on, when my husband died in '84. My son graduated from Penn State in '88. He majored in real estate. He came out, started working the business, took the real estate exam, passed it, and I kept it going for a while. Then after that, I was just about ready to retire. But not really completely, because I was trying to teach and run the business at the same time. When my husband died, I had very little experience in real estate, so I had to learn a whole lot in a short amount of time. But then I finally told him, take the ball and run. It's yours. And it was very difficult for him because when something like that happens, when the CEO of a company passes away, people just don't automatically trust that person.
Exactly.
Okay. He has to build his own.
Yes.
So it took him a while. He's doing very well.
Okay.
He lives in Phoenixville in Rivercrest.
Oh, my aunt lives over
I
there.
know that is. We used to live there.
Yep. Okay.
So when you came down to Pennsylvania during the time of now, have you ever experienced any racist encounters? Have you ever encountered any racism?
Like moving into the city, like.
Okay, and when I moved to Gulf Mills, we were like not the first black family on that. There were 3 great big contemporaries on the top of the hill. This was in '74. And so we were the first ones there. And I didn't experience any racism because when you live in a certain economic bracket, it might be going on, but they don't show it to you.
Right.
Okay, so they may call you behind your back, but up front they're going to be friendly. So I did. My children may have experienced it when they went to Upper Marion. Okay, but my son went to Penn State and he loved it. He loved it.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I only have one sister living. There were 5 of us. I'm the oldest, and the 3 in between passed away, and I have a younger sister who's 68. I'm 75. I just turned 75.
You look good.
I was gonna say.
Well, you know
Hair's
what they
still
say,
nice and fresh.
it does not crack.
Good black, not crack.
So you mentioned that you have very close friends here in the church. How do you feel with the college students moving in? How do you feel? Has anybody talked to you about their issues with the college students? And
They've said that that sometimes they have an issue with trash and maybe a little partying, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot.
so have they expressed
But
that there's some tension with us?
I don't know so much of whether it's the college students, but they are sort of upset that when the black people sell their homes, usually the white people are the ones who purchase them, and they rehab them, and so like the white population is growing. I love this community because I thought it was really integrated very, very well, you know. And in fact, you had black and white families living next door to each other, right?
Yes.
Is that true? Mm-hmm. And but I haven't personally experienced any discrimination, and haven't heard that much from them. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So being in the area, what histories have you learned about the area? What is something about Mount Pleasant that stands out to you that makes you want to call it like a home?
The fact that instead of me starting to go to church in the city when I stayed here because I was familiar with the area. Like I said, it's a very homey atmosphere. It's not too far from. I live in Lafayette Hill. I sold my house in Gulf North, my board house, so it's still a good distance from me. It's still a good distance.
Right.
But I would prefer attending a small, homey church rather than a big urban church like Enon or some of those big churches. That's
Sharon.
not, Sharon. I don't like those big churches.
Right.
I like to know everybody.
Right.
I'm the same exact way.
Right. So, do you have any advice for the college students in the area on how they should get involved in the community or kind of make relations, bridge that space or that gap
they
between?
can. Number one, they don't have to join the churches, but they can attend the churches. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we used to have something called Watch Night or what? I forgot what Pastor Miles used to call it.
Before
Where they could.
Eve?
No. Where the students could just attend the church temporarily, and then when they graduate, they go back to what they were doing. I forgot what they Watch Care. It's called.
Watch Care. Okay.
Watch Care.
Okay.
That would be, and wherever they live, to be respectful of their neighbors, and if they're going to party, keep the noise to a minimum,
Right.
and clean up the trash. I think a lot of times there's a lot of drinking of the beer, and there's a lot of beer cans, that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, for instance, there's one on the street now.
Is it?
Down in Pleasant, yes. So.
It's on Mount Pleasant.
Yes.
And that's what happens.
So do you think eventually it's going to get to the time where the older people in Mount Pleasant, as you know, there's a lot of older people that live in Mount Pleasant. Do you think at a point when they die out, it will become a more populated white community then?
If the people in the neighborhood don't make a concerted effort to stay, so if once the older people pass away, they should see that the property's passed on to their children.
Right. Keep it in the family.
Keep it in the family.
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite memory growing up?
I'm trying to think.
Or a favorite, or a memory.
Okay, well, when I was at Morgan, I was active in the sit-ins. We sat in at the lunch counter at the shopping center. When I attended Morgan, it was a rural. It was like in the suburbs. Now it's city. They're having a few problems.
Right,
Did you hear about the stabbings and whatever?
No, not at Morgan.
Well, yeah, yes, they did.
Wow.
Last week, 2 people were stabbed. But when I was at Morgan, the college was black, but the surrounding neighborhood was white.
Right.
And there was a shopping center within walking distance of the school, and if you wanted to buy something, you could go and purchase it, but you couldn't try on the clothes, couldn't try on the hats, and couldn't try on this was 1959.
Wow.
Okay. Also, there was a lunch counter, there was a Woolworths. You remember reading about the lunch counters in the South?
Yes.
Well, there was a lunch counter at Woolworths. We could go and purchase, buy little hot dogs and hamburgers. They put them in the bag and say, buy.
Right.
We couldn't.
Sit and eat.
So there was a chapter of the NAACP near our school, and they organized us. And we decided that we were going to integrate. The first time it occurred, I didn't participate, and it wasn't successful. But in 1959, it was happening all over the South.
Right.
So we did it, and it was a horrible experience in that we had to be nonviolent. We would march from the school every morning, get there before the restaurant opened. As soon as the restaurant opened, we would go in and take up every seat and sit there. The waitresses would refuse to serve us. They would call us names. People would come in and they would spit at us and they would throw things at us. And we had to take it. We could not fight back. And we did that for about 2 weeks. And then they finally served us.
How would you say that shaped you as a person going
It
through
made
that
me very, very strong. It made me, it was very, very helpful to me when I started teaching, because it made me realize that with patience, a lot can be accomplished. And so when I started teaching, it wasn't easy for me because I had come from Baltimore, I'd never had a white teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came here to teach, there were white teachers, there were white students at my school, okay? So I had to learn how to deal with that. And then some of the students, I taught at a school called Fitzsimons, which is not in the best neighborhood in Philadelphia. So there were a lot of behavior problems. And it taught me that with patience, I could win the respect of the students, because that's what won our respect. Most people couldn't believe that we were going to do that every day. We would sit there the whole day, and so we didn't have to, all of us didn't have to sit, there were people standing behind us, so when we got tired and felt like leaving, that person would take our place. So.
Now, did you go through that experience? Like, what drove you to do that? Did your friends say, let's do it, or did you just feel in your heart it was best?
I felt in my heart that if they were going to, if we could buy things from them, that we had the right, just like everybody else, to sit down and eat it if we felt like it. Okay.
Now, when you taught, did you have like a mixed classroom, like white and black kids?
Yes. And now at Fitzsimons, there was only like 1 or 2. But when I transferred to Leeds Junior High School, that was like in a Jewish area. The school was half and half. Predominantly, well, no, it was half black and half white. But something very tragic happened. A teacher that I shared my classroom with, he had classes in there also, and I had classes. We left school one day. He went out the back door, and I went out the front door. And when I got home, my phone was ringing. And a friend of mine, a fellow teacher, said, "Samson has been shot. He's dead." Samson Friedman was shot by a student. He was killed.
Was he a black man?
No, he was a Jewish man. He was killed because he had reprimanded the student, and I don't know what happened. He had reprimanded him for something in the hallway. He wasn't even his teacher, and the student got a gun and shot him when he left the building and killed him. And then after that, the whole neighborhood changed. It was an integrated neighborhood called Mount Airy. The school was completely integrated. But that summer, those Jewish parents sold those houses and got out of Dodge. So after that, the school started changing from integrated to predominantly a black, and it's never been the same since. But I stayed there 25 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I stayed there
Did you have fear to go back, like, because that could have been you type of thing?
We had to go back the next day. When I walked in the door and walked in my classroom, I got hysterical. I started crying. And one of the students said, "Miss Mac, why?" My students call me. My last name is McIntosh. My students call me Miss Mac. I allowed them to call me Miss Mac. "Miss Mac, why are you crying?" I said, "We have lost a wonderful teacher." And he said, "Well, I said, "Well, I can't help but crying because he was a wonderful teacher and he was a wonderful man, and he's gone."
So, at the time, did you think your students understood?
No, young people don't understand that.
Right.
And dying. It takes a while. That's why when you go to funerals, And the young people come in, they get hysterical, and they're crying. I used to be the same way. Now I don't cry anymore at funerals. I have to go to one tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Sorry.
My uncle passed away. I have to leave here at 5 o'clock in the morning, drive to Baltimore, be there at 7, and then my sister will drive us to Richmond, Virginia for my uncle's funeral. Then after the funeral, we'll stay for the repast, then we'll drive back to Baltimore. I will spend the night in Baltimore. I will come home Tuesday.
Wow, busy schedule. You're running. Wow.
Are you the only one out of your siblings or family that's here in Pennsylvania?
I'm the only one of my siblings, correct.
And
I have an aunt, the aunt I lived with. No, she's no longer. She's forgetting. She moved to Baltimore. So I have cousins here. But like I said, I only have one sister remaining. She's in Baltimore. The 3 in between passed away. So I'm 75 and she's 68.
Do you ever think that you'll move from Pennsylvania back to Baltimore? Or
Not unless I'm ill. My children are here. My children are in this area. So my daughter's in Sweetboro, one son's in Phoenixville, and one son's in Lancaster.
Have you ever came up with any problems with them being there and like you being here? Like at one point, did you feel like alone or?
I'm the kind of person, I may be alone, but I'm not lonely, okay? Because I can always find something to occupy my mind. Like I said, I read, I do crossword puzzles,
Yeah, that's good.
and I belong to a lot of groups. I'm an AKA. I am
What chapter?
Rotate Omega in Philadelphia. I belong to First Baptist. I belong to a Pinochle Club. I belong to a charity group called Workers in the Vineyard. And I belong to a doll collectors called All God's Children. So usually I have something to do every day.
Now, did you raise your kids as Christian, like all your kids as Christian?
I insisted that they go to church until they reach a certain age, and then after that they made their own choices until they went to college.
Now, do you feel that since you brought your kids up in the church, that knowledge that they've learned in the church has stuck with them?
Oh, yes.
They've kind of stayed on the straight and narrow?
I don't know whether stayed on the straight and narrow. we all have sinned and fallen short of the Lord,
Right.
and will continue to do so. But they are, my daughter's back in church and active. My son goes to Church of the Savior. He's been a member of that church for years now. He said this church is too small. So he's going to Church of the Savior. And then my other son is in Lancaster. He belongs to a church, a Christian church in Lancaster. Mm-hmm.
So you said, and this might be a touchy subject, but you said your husband had passed away. How was that for you?
It was a shock because it was very, very sudden. He dropped dead playing basketball at the YMCA. And he had had a slight heart attack a couple of years before that. And then I thought he was doing okay. But he just dropped dead. And then I was left with a real estate business to run, which I knew absolutely nothing about. So, but that taught me that you can do anything. You can do anything if you really put your mind to it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you have for us as young college students coming up and maturing and getting ready to move on to the next phase in our lives? What would you say would be constructive for us that we need to carry with us that you've learned through your experiences through life?
Stop, look, and listen. Keep your eyes and your minds and your hearts open. Learn, and then accept and reject. It's wonderful to be exposed to everything, but you have to be able to accept the things that are beneficial to you and reject the things that are not beneficial to you. We live in an open society. Supposedly, everybody is supposed to have the same rights and privileges, but we know that's not so. My concern is for the young black men and what's going on with them. And as black women, we have to do all we can to motivate our black men and keep talking to them and telling them to be on alert. Because sometimes they have that male ego that they think that they can do anything and nobody's going to hurt them and nobody's going to harm them. You have to whisper in them and tell them they have to be here.
After hearing about the Trayvon Martin case and other cases along those lines, Eric Gardner and stuff, are you shocked about the outcome of what happened, or is that something that went through history? If you get what I'm saying.
I was shocked that it happened today. Now, I was aware of many things like that happening many years ago before so-called integration. But I'm not sure that integration has helped. Because I think integration has made our young men think that, like I said before, that there's no problem, that they can do or say anything that they want to, but they have to realize that they have to be very, very careful. Because a lot of men in positions of power, like Pastor spoke about that this morning, the power that they have, people who have power. There are some people who have power who shouldn't have power.
Yes.
Okay.
So is that a conversation that you have with your son?
Oh, all the time. I always tell my son went to Penn State and he joined a white fraternity. In fact, he thinks he's white. But every day, he thinks he's white. He doesn't, because his buddies are white, his boys are white, his business acquaintances are white. But I have to keep telling him, I said, son, remember, to you, we're still an N-word. I said, you have to them, remember that some of them, not all of them, some of them think of you as the N-word. And you have to be careful. You can't completely trust everybody.
And so, since you can't really trust them, and we're still N-word, have you had any white friends that you have any problems with, or that you never really fully gave your trust to?
Or crossed the boundary with you, and how did you handle that?
They crossed the boundary. When I was teaching that school that was predominantly, when it was half and half, there were a number of teacher strikes, okay. And I belonged to the union, and because I felt that the students needed us, we shouldn't stay out. And I crossed the picket line, and when I crossed the picket line, I wasn't the only one. There were about 30 black teachers who crossed the picket line because we felt that we needed to be in the school with the students and not observe the strike. The strike went on 70-some days or something like that. And because of that, when the strike was over, I had 4 tires slashed. My tires on my car were slashed. I had dirty notes put in my mailbox. I received threatening phone calls. And that taught me that you can't trust people. You have to be very, very careful.
And you said cross the picket line. What's the picket line?
Picket line is like when people are on strike, you usually have a line of people who are trying to keep people from going in, demonstrating with the signs and everything. They don't want the people to go to work because they're on strike.
Yeah.
So that's the picket line. You stand. Okay.
So when you were teaching, going back to when you said your school was half and half before that tragic incident with your co-teacher, did you ever have any children, any Jewish children that kind of spat upon you or looked at you?
No, I never got that. I never got that from the children.
Okay.
And just as a matter of fact, one of the Jewish teachers befriended me. We both started about the same age. And as a matter of fact, I went to her funeral last Tuesday. She's the same age. We became friends. She went to another school, and she never married and never had children. But we read books, we discussed books, we went to the movies, and we maintained our friendship, and she had leukemia, and she died the funeral was last Tuesday. But she was Jewish, but we were good friends, very good friends.
Now, do you believe that racism is something that's taught, or do you believe that it's something that society can put onto someone? Like, do you believe it more so comes from the parents of the kid, or do you think that's something that you can learn from everyday life?
Both, but I think it's really, most of it comes from parents, but society also teaches it. Kids pick up stuff, and they're like sponges.
Yeah.
They can observe everything.
Do you have any grandchildren?
I have 3 grandchildren. I have a granddaughter she'll be 14 next week. She's in Lancaster, and I have 2 grandsons. They are 6 and 4. They're the ones in Phoenixville.
Now, do you have any concerns, like, for instance, my grandma always says, like, she has concerns for us, like, growing up in today's society. Do you have concerns
I
that
do.
one day we'll go back in history and we'll have racism all over again?
I do. I really do.
So what is it?
Now see, my problem is, I have an international family. My son is married to a Korean woman, but she's not really Korean because she was adopted by Irish Catholics. So those 2 children, I like to call these kids, those 2 children are biracial. They're half Korean and half African American, okay? My other son, who's the one who's 13, he married a Caucasian girl, so she's biracial. I struggle with that. I kept trying to tell them, well, she's black. I said, no, she's not black. She's biracial. She's half black and half white. So that's hard. That's how I dealt with that. I worry about them and how society's going to treat them because they are biracial. I really worry about that.
Now, growing up in that time, like, your kids marrying people that are not of, like, black descent, were you one of those people that didn't like that your kids were marrying outside of their race?
Did you come to accept it?
Well, whatever made them happy. It wasn't a love at first sight, though.
Okay.
It was a gradual thing. So now I love them. Both of my daughter-in-laws are like my daughters.
Good. So you would say you have a good relationship?
I have a very good
with
relationship with them, and they're both excellent mothers. My older daughter got married late, and she didn't have children.
So how do you view being that your family is so interracial now? Do you think you have a different perspective on interracial couples and interracial marriages now than when before?
Those facts opened my eyes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any finishing questions?
I don't think I have any.
Is there something great that you want to end with?
I was delighted to talk to both of you.
We appreciate it.
Very poised young ladies.
Thank you.
And what is your major going to be?
Criminal justice.
And what is your major?
Human resources.
Oh, my daughter's the director of human resources for Kendall Crossland. It's stressful.
That director position.
It's a stressful position.
Oh yeah, I know.
She comes home. She calls me on the way home every day. She says, Mom. But she can tell me because she knows she's not going to go any further. But the firing, she has to fire people.
Thanks for taking the time
Okay.
to do this with us.
Thank you.
Let me know what
appreciate it.
happens. What's going to happen with this information?
Oh, so what's going to happen is we're going to upload it to a computer. I'm not sure if we're going to do too much editing. I think we might just take the video as it is raw.
We are. What we're going to